Today what we're going to learn is the process for turning words and ideas into powerful infographics and how to make them in PowerPoint. We're going to give an overview because, we're going to spend a relatively small amount of time. However, I'll give you all the information that you need, all the tools, the ingredients to make it yourself, and some of the recipes. To create a successful, a powerful infographic, there's two pieces of the puzzle. There's concepting, which is visualizing what it's going to look like, and then there's rendering, making it on the computer. If we put those two things together, what we find is we have an infographic that does some pretty amazing things. According to the research, it increases the speed at which we communicate approximately 100 times. It makes things more memorable, approximately 86%. It improves learning. Now, statistics. All statistics I recommend we take with a grain of salt. Imagine after every statistic you read, you see a hyphen and the word and the letters ISH. So do know that everything is dependent upon other variables. It's very difficult to isolate your needs or to replicate your needs in a learning environment or a research environment. So it's ish. So it improves learning 400%-ish. It increases the likelihood of winning or being successful, and when I say successful, I mean improved understanding, recollection, and adoption, because ultimately that's what the infographic is intended to do, 43%. So concepting. How in the heck do we go from I have an idea, or I should say, how do we come up with the initial concept? Well, there are three pieces of the puzzle. The three pieces are to know our audience, to clearly define our message, and to explain or prove our message. So first and foremost is our audience. Who is our audience? So looking at this particular infographic, type into chat, who is our target audience? Who do you think our target audience would be for this infographic? Go ahead and type it into chat. When someone created this infographic, who did they have in mind?
People are looking to diet.
Oh, brilliant.
That's what that was created for.
Brilliant. That's awesome. Thank you. So who do you think this infographic was made for?
And we have Rachel saying people who want to make smarter food choices.
Nice. Absolutely. Any others? Okay. We will move forward. You're absolutely right. The target audience is what we need to know first in order to create a successful infographic. The smaller our audience, the more effective our infographic is. So for example, if we have a very broad audience, like let's say all educators, then our audience is going to have a broad set of hopes, fears, and biases, and desires, and things of that nature. We want to get into their head. The goal is to empathize with our audience, with our learners, so that we understand what motivates them. Once we know that, then we can formulate a message. The message must be blindingly obvious in our infographics. It must be one of the most, if not the most important thing in our infographic. So I ask you to type in, what is our message for this particular infographic? What is our message? So their audience are people that want to eat healthy, make healthier breakfast choices. What is our message to those people? Go ahead and type it in. Taylor, do we have any things pop up yet?
Yeah, Jason said, "Eat this, not that." Simply the title of the
yes.
the infographic.
You better believe it. Eat this, not that. So the title of your infographic is your message, and it should always have, and we'll talk about this in a second, it should always have an explicit or implicit benefit. So eat this, not that, so that you will be healthier. There should always be an implicit or explicit benefit in our message. People don't make changes unless there's a reason, a benefit for them to change. People don't care about our content unless we give them a reason to care. So benefit and how is what I recommend how we structure our message. The benefit doesn't always have to be said as long as it is implicit My recommendation is be explicit. If you have proof, quantitative evidence, include it. Include it. Not always. It's rare that we have a lot of quantitative evidence. So the next thing is after we know our audience, we know our message, and we explain or we know our audience, we know our message, then we have to explain or prove. So let's take a look at our current message. Stop 65% of fraud before it happens using Eagle Solutions' 3 clever keys. Who is our audience? Well, our audience are Eagle Solutions employees who need to explain these new features to their existing customers. So if I said to the customer, we're going to stop 65% of fraud before it happens using Eagle Solutions' 3 clever keys, what would they ask? Now we're having a dialogue with our target audience, with our learners. So they would ask, well, what in the heck are the 3 clever keys? Because frankly, I have no idea. And how will it stop 65% of fraud before it happens? Almost always, the questions are what and how. What is it that's going to deliver the benefit, and how will it deliver the benefit? Our job is to explain it simply and clearly. If we cannot, then perhaps we don't understand it well enough. So the answers to the questions are, what are the 3 clever keys? Well, there are 3 new automated features that start as soon as the user logs in. And how in the heck do they stop 65% of fraud before it happens? Well, it starts protection protocols immediately. That stops 18%. It confirms identity credentials, and that stops 28%. And it denies inconsistent reports, which stops 19%. So those are very simple answers to what could be a complex question. Our job is to simplify it. That's the beauty of an infographic. It follows the KISS principle. Keep it simple, silly. The goal is to give me the 10,000-foot answer to my question so that I can understand this stuff and adopt it. So now we have to render it. Well, there's 3 pieces to rendering it. First, we need to chunk it, then we need to assemble it, and then we visualize. What I mean by chunking is that we must break the information into bite-sized, digestible morsels that our audience can digest, can eat, can assimilate. So I'm going to highlight what I think are the most important pieces of the puzzle. These are the most important things. You may disagree. So in your version, you would highlight something different. And then I get rid of everything else that isn't as important. So I highlight the things that are most important. I chunk them. And then after I chunk them, it is my job to reassemble them to tell a story. So in this story I'm telling, I'm saying that the 3 clever keys go into the Eagle Solutions IT security solution, architecture, whatever it is, and then out comes then we stop 65% of fraud before it happens. The reason why I want my infographics to tell a story is because facts tell and stories sell. And I don't mean sell as in sell a product. What I mean, it gets buy-in from our learners. We remember things differently. Stories contextualize our content. It helps us apply what we're learning. All successful infographics tell a micro story or tell a story. Either one. There's a story happening. So once we chunk it, and then we reassemble it to tell a story, then we must visualize it. There's only 3 ways to visualize an infographic. One is the literal method. It is the show me method. I use it when we have to describe something. So for example, if this was written by a professional author, if I asked you right now to read this at your desk and try to do this exercise, what I find when I do this presentation, when I do this class, co-located with people in the room, that approximately 10%-ish get it right. And about 90% are a little confused, slightly or completely off. When I change it to a visual description, What I find is it's just the opposite. About 90% of the people get it right, and there's about 10% of the people that are confused. What I recommend is combine the two. Have a little bit of a textual description with the visual so that if there's any ambiguity within the visual, then the learner or the audience can refer to the text and erase or likely erase any ambiguity. Think about if you ever put together IKEA furniture. How many times, if you have you been frustrated with the fact that they're trying to be language agnostic? How many times did you find that perhaps you couldn't follow or were unclear as to what the steps were? I know it's happened to me. The next methodology is the quantitative method. What is it? It's quantitative graphics, things like bar charts, area charts, etc. Think Excel. When do you use it? When you're trying to communicate amount, value, or time. Amount, value, or time. These are the 13 different graphic types that I recommend. Or 12, I'm sorry, 12. What help if I could count? It's like I'm 5 years old. These are the 12 different graphic types that I recommend. There is a subcategory under dashboard graphic, and the dashboard graphic is a holistic view of all the information. Think of your car's dashboard. It's the health of your car at a glance. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Do I have enough battery power? Do I have enough oil? That's what a dashboard graphic is. Now, a subcategory of a dashboard graphic is a gauge graphic. Think of a speedometer or odometer or thermometer. Any of the ohmometers work as a dashboard graphic. So it's a piece that may make up your dashboard, or it can be pulled out to be a separate quantitative chart. And last but certainly not least is the substitution method. What is it? It's a visual metaphor, simile, or analogy. When do you use it? When the information is too complex to understand any other way. It weaves in characteristics that no longer need to be said. So for example, Taylor, I'm going to ask you this. When I say bridge, when you think of a bridge, what adjectives or concepts come to mind? What do you think, Taylor?
Concept of a bridge, it helps you get from one place
to
another.
Yeah, what words pop into your head? What's that?
Well, I was just explaining what a kind of a bridge did. You know, it helps you cross from one point to the other. I think
Absolutely.
of stone. I think of water. River, because that's what it's going over. A lot of things.
Absolutely. Thank you. So what I find is that when we use a metaphor, all of the attributes that make up that thing that we're using, substituting one idea for another, all those attributes are woven into my story. So for example, we may want to use a bridge metaphor to speak to transition. So on the left side, we have an old system. On the right side, we have a new system. If we don't bridge the gap effectively, we run the risk of failing to migrate to the new system. In order to bridge that gap, we need to analyze, plan, test, and deploy. And if we do that properly, we lower the transition risk. So this is using a bridge metaphor to communicate a relatively complex concept and help the learner, help our target audience understand it at a deeper level. And all of those adjectives that go into understanding or communicating what a bridge is woven into our story without saying a word. So now we go back to our chunked version. Which symbol is best for IT security? If someone doesn't mind typing it in, what do you think? Think of on your computer, when you connect to a secure website, what symbol appears on your screen? Go ahead and type it into chat. And Taylor, when you see something, let me know.
Yeah, we already
so when you
sorry, we already got
what's
a few. That? People are saying the lock.
Cool. Absolutely, I agree. That is pretty much the universal symbol for IT security. So what I'm going to use is this visual metaphor. I'm going to use this substitution to represent Eagle Solutions IT security architecture. So for the 3 clever keys, what do you think we should use? Go ahead and type it into chat. What image do you think we should use to represent the 3 clever keys?
We got people saying keyboard buttons or unique looking keys.
Absolutely. So we're going to continue with the metaphor of the lock, and we will use keys. So let's see how all of this works together. So we want to stop 65% of fraud and theft before it happens. How do we do that? Well, we do it with something called the 3 clever keys. What are the 3 clever keys? Well, the first one starts protection protocols immediately, and that's going to stop 18%. The next one confirms identity credentials, and that stops 28%. And the last denies inconsistent reports, which stops 19% of fraud. Now, the next slide or the next graphic or beneath it, I'm going to speak to exactly how each one of those keys work. So that is a visual, that is an infographic that communicates that information. However, there's a problem with it, and we'll go into that in a second. But first, you should download a copy of the graphic cheat sheet. What the graphic cheat sheet does is it helps us pick the right graphic type for the right message. On the left side, we have every message you will ever encounter in an infographic at its core. And then you can pick from the yellow column, which are simple infographic, the orange column for more complex, and blue for quantitative amount and value. All right, so imagine you and I are working on our job, and you say, hey, Mike. I say, what's up? We need a graphic to communicate a relationship. And I say, what about a Venn diagram? And you say, holy for holies, I'm sick of Venn diagrams. No worries. What about a puzzle graphic? And you say, ha, that's worse. I've seen too many puzzle graphics. No problem. The more you tell me, the more I realize we can use a complex graphic. So I say, what about a funnel graphic? And you say, that's cool, close, but not quite it. No worries. What about a pipe graphic? And you say, Mike, what is a pipe graphic? Well, we go to the Google, the Bing, we look it up, and son of a gun, that's close but no cigar. And I say the Google, the Bing because I'm over 40, so anything technological must have the in front of it. That's a rule, just for everybody out there. And then, of course, I say, what about a spiral graphic? And you say, what's that? Now, I also have an interactive version of this cheat sheet, and I'll show you in a moment. It's online. It's at billiondollargraphics.com. So we look at it at billiondollargraphics.com, at the Google, at the Bing, at the Yahoo, and you say, that's what I want. So here's what I mean. So if we go to Billion Dollar Graphics and, oops, wrong one. On this, we can see all examples of each one of these graphic types. So you can choose if you're trying to communicate architecture or structure, if you're trying to choose amount or value, or whatever. And then you can scroll down and you can click on the graphics to see an example of what it looks like. And that way you can imagine your content in there and see if it works. All right, let's continue forward. So the problem is keys open locks, and we don't want to show that we're opening a lock. So what I recommend is we use a peg metaphor. So we say the first key, which is like Legos, starts protection protocols immediately. That stops 18%. The next confirms identity and credentials. That stops 28%. And the last denies inconsistent reports. That creates the security that stops 65% of fraud and theft before it happens. So that might be a better approach. Use your graphic cheat sheet to figure it out. Now, if you email me after this session is over, I'll put up my email address in a second. I will send you the step-by-step instructions on how I rendered this graphic in PowerPoint. There are amazing tools that allow you to create any shape you can imagine, and I'll show you. Let's ungroup this. So in Mac or PC, it doesn't matter. So if I scroll in and I have both and I select one and I select the other, and I choose shape format, and then I choose from it's merge shapes under shape format, I can subtract and create almost any shape you can imagine. So right now I have this shape, and I'm simply going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to cut this rectangle away from that donut shape. And now I have the arc of my lock. And if we scroll over, you'll see step by step how I created the lock arm. I'm simply adding basic shapes. Basic shapes are found here. So I'm simply adding basic shapes and combining them or cutting them away to create fairly complex objects. And I'll send you the step-by-step instructions for the lock and the key, how I made each one. Just email me at mike@billiondollargraphics.com and I'll send it right over to you. The other option that you have is there are websites out there to create infographics. So let's take a look at one called Canva.com. I'll keep this up on the screen for a moment for you to take a screen grab or take a picture of it, or write it down. So it's Canva.com, Pictochart.com, and Infogram. There are a lot of others out there. These are my 3 favorites. So if you go to Canva.com, what you can do is you can choose a template. So you choose all these designs, and it has predefined, so it says create a design, and it has predefined options. So if I want to create, let's say I want to create a blog graphic or a presentation or an Instagram graphic or a Pinterest graphic or an infographic right here. So you can choose a template, and then you can modify that template any way that you want, and you can save it out as a PDF file. So everything is completely editable, colors, etc. So that is another option. Of course, the other option is Get My Graphics, a huge library of PowerPoint native graphics that you can start with. I recommend that you have a graphic asset library, because that is a great way to start to make things faster and easier. So either build it or buy it. The choice is completely up to you. I've done a hybrid of both. Most of my stuff I built. However, sometimes I acquired things when I needed them, and they were too complex to build quickly. The other thing is I got a book out there, but the book is awesome. Yay! I have a pat myself on the back. Forgive me for that one. But the point is it starts you off with a library of 200 editable graphics that then you can jumpstart your graphic asset library. Infographics like this that can be completely edited in PowerPoint. So if you click on this and you choose Edit Data, it automatically edits it via Excel, so that then it's updated. So if I wanted to change it to, let's do this, change it to 55%, oops, 5%. It automatically changes in the infographic. So they're already set up. One of the things that I did is I looked at how people made infographics in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, and figured out how to reverse engineer it for PowerPoint. And all of these are available with the book and/or I think and Get My Graphics. It's available there. You can do some searching on the web, see what you can find, whatever you choose. Let's see, other ideas. These are other ideas using visual metaphors to help people understand your story. You can use animation effects. There's several ways you can animate your graphics. And so we can use a tree metaphor to talk about how we added disciplines to Stroud College. They were using a hybrid tree and timeline example to tell a little story. So in the end, essentially, we have 2 buckets or 2 pieces of the puzzle. One is concepting, knowing your audience, formulating that benefit and how message, even if the benefit is implied, not explicit, and then explain or prove it. Answer the what and how questions, chunk it, reassemble it, and then visualize it using the literal method, using visual simile, the substitution method, and or the quantitative method. With that in mind, what questions do you have about what we just talked about? Hopefully, hopefully this was very helpful and you got quite a bit out of it, and it perhaps made you think, well, How do you do that? Or are there other places to go to get something? Or how do I choose the right color? Things of that nature. Taylor, did you have any questions?
No, I didn't have any questions. I've been to a lot of your webinars or your presentations, like at the Presentation Summit, and so a lot of these things are it's kind of a repeat for me. But I would suggest for everybody watching to go and check out his website, check out other presentations he's done, because the information is seriously so useful to everything. And like Rachel Matthew just commented, this information is so useful. It's just trying to figure out how to apply it to what you need. And that will come with time. Again, if you email Mike, he'll have an answer to you for you. Again, that graphic cheat sheet as well is really big in helping and understanding where a graphic applies to your situation.
Absolutely. Please do contact me and say, hey, Mike, here's my challenge. How would you apply what you just shared to my challenge? And I'm happy to walk you through it. A lot of people are challenged with, well, I deal with agricultural issues. How does this apply? I deal with IT issues. How does this apply? I deal with healthcare issues. How does this apply? It's all the same. I've worked in every industry, and the process is identical. The challenge is getting that initial understanding of how to apply it to your specific need. That's going to be the secret sauce, so to speak. Any other questions, Taylor?
No, I don't see any other questions. Actually, we got one.
Awesome.
We got one.
Okay.
What's the harshest feedback you've received from a client based on your infographic designs?
The number one harsh feedback I received, and you will probably get, is I hate it. And the reason why is because human beings react emotionally to aesthetics before they react to the concept or the message or the content. So when we first look at something, our brains are wired to react emotionally first because it actually protects us from dying. Our emotional mind or our unconscious or subconscious mind reacts before our conscious mind does. We have approximately 8 million-ish subconscious thoughts for every conscious thought we have. So when someone sees something, they might not have a good interpersonal skills, and they may just say how they feel. Ultimately, they're usually reacting to their own biases, and the goal is to objectively find what the issue is. Is the issue with the color? Is the issue with the aesthetic look and feel? Or is the issue with maybe the title or something else that was their initial reaction? Following this process helps you figure it out. Say, oh, okay, I'm sorry, perhaps I misunderstood you. What was your message? Is the message still this? And they would say, no, actually it's changed. Then therefore the infographic is wrong. So knowing these things, breaking it down objectively is the secret to resolving it versus a situation where I'll know it when I see it. I'll know it when I see it is the most timely, inefficient way to create an infographic. Instead, if you follow a process, get buy-in early on, then we can find out what the real issue is. And oftentimes, the issue is aesthetic in nature. Awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have Rachel asking if you could click back to the slide about developing the title with the benefit.
You better believe it. Hold on one second. Title with the benefit. One sec. It is right here. So here it is, benefit and how. And if you have proof, put it in there. Essentially, it's a summary of your infographic. If we cannot clearly articulate what the message is, what you're supposed to get from our infographic, then we probably shouldn't be communicating it because we don't know it or understand it well enough. Great communicators around the world succeed because they found a way to summarize what they're going to say in a way that engages and motivates their audience, giving the audience a benefit. There is a lot of science behind what I'm sharing with you, and there's a deeper dive. This is the tip of the iceberg. People change for one of three reasons. They change because of fear, they change because of pain, or they change because of gain. Those are the only three reasons why you and I will ever make a decision to change. And if there are other ways to create an infographic that involve pain and fear, However, I prefer to take a positive approach to creating all of my learning materials. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing that with us.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the heck out of the rest of your day and have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Awesome.
Bye, Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah.